And there's this thing that I've noticed in Christendom on social media, particularly more in like moderate or conservative circles, where we see these calls for like, come quickly, Lord Jesus, Maranatha. And Maranatha, it's an Aramaic phrase that was then used by Greek-speaking Christians, and basically means like, come quickly, come Lord Jesus. And it was a cry of the first, second, third, and on centuries church that Jesus would return. It was the great hope of the post-resurrection church, that Jesus would come and finish the work that Jesus had started in recreating the world and making all things right. Now, where it can go wrong is when Maranatha, come quickly, Lord Jesus, then becomes an excuse to not do anything. And this is a form of escapism. This is what's wrong with rapture theology. Rapture theology, escapism theology says, hey, Jesus is going to return and set all things right, and so we just need to wait in the meanwhile. And this usually takes a form of like individualism. I need to be like a holy, righteous, pious person so that when Jesus comes back, I will be ready and prepared for it. And this then has implications of like not needing to make changes in the world. You see this in like climate change discussion of like, hey, Christians, you don't need to be worried about climate change because, humans don't have that much power to change the climate, and God's going to make the world burn, so you don't need to worry about it. You can see this in how Christians sometimes approach government. Of like, government can't create justice, only Jesus can, and so we just need to wait and say Maranatha. This is not how Christians use the phrase Maranatha, though. 1 Corinthians 15, Paul goes on and on about the resurrection and Jesus' return and the restoration of physical creation, and Jesus setting all things right. And it's a very universalistic chapter as well. In Adam all died, and Christ all will be made alive. Jesus will return, and everything will be set under his feet, and God will be all in all. Anyway, the end of the chapter concludes with, therefore, continue your work. Your work is not in vain. Excel in your work because of the return of Jesus. Meaning that because we know that Jesus is coming back, we therefore need to work all the harder to prepare the way. That we need to create a world that is verdant and just and beautiful, so that justice can make its home, which is actually 2 Peter language, when Jesus returns. The fact that Jesus is coming back is the reason that we work towards justice. And so this is why even in my, progressive, liberal, Christian, deconstructed, reconstructed state, still think that eschatology is really, really important. We can't just give up on end time stuff. What Christians need to be doing is like studying, okay, what is the sort of world that Jesus wants to create? And so you study the prophets, and you study the teachings of Jesus, and you study the Lord's Prayer and Matthew 5-7, the Sermon on the Mount. Okay, if this is the world that God is wanting to create, you study Revelation. Then you say, okay, we start that work now. It starts today. We don't wait until Jesus returns. We start the work now, so that Jesus can then bring it to its completion, bring it to its fulfillment through us, through people. 1 Corinthians says that we are co-workers with God, synergeo. We have the same energy with God to bring this work into the world. So that's why we need to work on gun legislation.